So with that, we are continuing our fall series that we've been looking at, which is just learning to live and just kind of walking about how do we learn to live in this life to learn how to thrive rather than just surviving. And everything we've talked about prior to today has been dealing with internal things inside you that actually have an effect on your physical world around you. So we've been dealing with how you think, different things going on in your head, and how you respond to the world to help us learn to live. Today it's going to be a little bit different because we're going to be talking about just an item that's in the external that we use in the world on a daily basis that has a huge effect on our lives and the results we will get in our lives depending on how we handle this issue and if we use it with wisdom or not. So today we're going to be looking at the issue of money and learning how to live within our means. Just learn how to live within our means. This issue has a significant impact on whether you will learn to thrive in life or if you will just kind of go through life surviving from day to day. The Bible has a ton to say about this topic, but it is very clear, has a ton to say about this topic, and it is very clear on the results between those who learn to live within their means and those who don't learn to live within their means. Here's a brief example of what the Bible says about this. In 2 Corinthians 9, it kind of gives you an idea of those who have a godly view of money, what the results will be. It says this: "And God will generously provide all you need, then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others." So if you learn a godly view of money, it says God will take care of all of your needs, always have extra left over that you can actually help others as well in your life. Then we see in 1 Timothy 6, chapter 6, verse 10, the consequences if you don't learn these lessons, if you don't learn to have a godly view of money. It says this: "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And some people craving money have wandered from the true faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows." Okay? So you have these two dramatically different outcomes in your life depending on how you deal with this issue and this item of money in your life, how you use it, and if you use wisdom, godly wisdom with it, or if you use worldly wisdom with it, you will get two different outcomes. So today what I want to start talking about and start off with is this: why do we mishandle our money? Okay, why is it that we mishandle our money? Why do we tend to fail to live within our means? Why do most people end up in debt? Okay, here's the deal. 42% of Americans have credit card debt. 42% of Americans have credit card debt. On average, those that have that debt have at least $10,000 in credit card debt. Okay, 42%. 77%, so that's 3/4. 77% of Americans have some form of debt in their lives outside of their mortgage. So not your mortgage, but some other way. 77% of Americans have some form of debt, and the average amount of debt they have, in that case, is over $40,000. Okay, over $40,000. So let's look at what some of the real reasons are a majority of people get themselves in debt this morning. Why it is they fail to live within their means. Now, there are a few external circumstances that can change this. One of the big ones we know in America is medical situations that can come up that put people in debt. That's one of the outside ones, but that is actually not one of the main reasons why most people end up in debt. It's more of a rare thing than it is a common thing, but it does happen. So we're going to look at what are the core issues, what are the things happening within us that force us to spend outside of the means that we have, that force us to go into debt. Why do we do it? When all of us would agree probably going into debt's not a good idea, right? Like we all know that that's not a good thing to be in debt, all right? So here we go. Here are the things I would say are the core underlying reasons. Number one is this: jealousy of others. We live in a world, we see other people with things that we wish we had, and because we wish we had them, we just start to think, you know what, I actually deserve them, and I want to have what they have, and we actually, when we can't afford it, go out and buy those things so we can have them. And so we have jealousy, and it forces us to buy things that we can't afford and forces us to live outside our means and acquire debt. Another issue is this: strictly greed. And what greed is this: greed is simply you never have enough. You always have to have more. And the simple form of greed is no matter how much I get, no matter how much I purchase, no matter how many things I own, I have to have more. So whether that means I have to spend money I don't have, or whatever I have to do, I always have to have more. Greed is one of the driving factors. Another one is this: a lack of contentment. What that one is, this one I probably deal with the most in my own life, is a lack of contentment. The things you have kind of get old to you and you just need new stuff. You want the latest stuff, the most updated things. So you're not content where you are, so you feel like you just need to go get something more. And people will go into debt and spend outside their means, not for stuff they need by any means. They will go do it strictly because they're just not content where they are and they feel like this is going to make them feel better. And so they have to go get something more. You see this one a lot, people in their middle ages that feel like the house that I have that I can afford and that is nice and works for me, but I want something bigger because I just need a bigger house. I want that dream house. And so you'll see a lot of people in their mid-30s, early 40s go out and buy a much bigger house than the one they've been living in that they can afford comfortably, and actually go into so much debt that they have a hard time paying the mortgage. We used to see up north, because it's actually a little bit different culture up north than it is here. People are much more materialistic. It's kind of different. Here in the South and in Tulsa, we've noticed people are not quite as materialistic on a general whole as they were up in the Detroit area. But we would always see people in the Detroit area that would, in their mid-30s, early 40s, go buy like their dream house. And then we would go into their houses and like half the house wasn't furnished. And we'd always be like, why is your rooms empty and stuff like that? Like, we don't have money to buy stuff to put in them. And you're going, so you buy your dream house, but you can't put anything in the dream house because now all of your money goes for the dream house. So you can't eat out anymore, you can't enjoy life and all, but you have this nice house, okay? And all their money is being sucked up by this house, and you just start going, that's a lack of contentment and making bad purchases. On a little bit more understandable level, for those of you who are younger, your phones get old to you. And even though your phones do everything you need them to do, and you're happy with them, and they function everything you need the newest one. And this is what marketers go after, is that you won't be content. So right now you have the iPhone 11 out. And you have people going, I have to have the iPhone 11. And you're going, well, if you have the iPhone 10, you're still good, okay? It does everything you need it to do. An iPhone 11 is not going to get you anything more. But they focus on your lack of content to get you to spend money you would not otherwise spend. Another issue, lack of patience. A lot of Americans lack patience on waiting to buy things when they can afford to buy it. And so they speed the process up and go, I'll buy it now. I'll earn the money later, and then I can pay for it later. And it's strictly a lack of patience. You don't need it. It's stuff that you will probably get down the road. You just don't want to wait to get it, so you get it now, and you will go into debt getting it now. And the next one is this, a lack of self-worth. What I mean by this is an emotional thing. A lot of people don't find value in themselves, don't find worth in themselves, and they think things will give it to them, because they think things will impress other people. So in our culture, a lot of people will go buy things to impress others because they feel if they are impressing others, that gives them value and people view them as people of value. You see people use cars, homes, clothes, toys, technology. You see them use a whole host of different items that they get and buy, and you know when you have an issue with this, when you buy that new item and you have to show other people what you got. When you are doing that, you can go back and pretty much understand it's a lack of self-worth that's driving you to purchase things that you probably don't need to purchase right now, but you have a lack of self-worth, so you're trying to impress the world and show them you have value by the things you own, not by just who you are, because you don't think you are worth that much, okay? Those are the reasons we tend to mishandle our money. Those are the reasons we tend to not spend within our means. Now, with that, though, comes some serious consequences. When you mishandle your money, when you don't live within your means, it brings on debt, which then has huge consequences. Let me give you what some of these consequences are. If you're not aware of debt, you're going to sit back and be like, man, I don't ever want to go in debt. If you're in debt, I'm going to read this and you're going to go, oh yeah, we've been through every one of those things, and that's where we sit in most of our life, okay? If you are younger and you haven't started out in life yet, this is what you need to get out today. Debt, bad. Don't do it. Live within your means. It will make your life much more valuable, much more enjoyable. You will learn to thrive in life rather than just surviving. Here are some of the consequences of living outside your means. One, you will have a constant source of stress and anxiety. If you have debt, you are constantly in a state of stress and anxiety about it. Like, it just never leaves the back of your mind. It's always there. It's always sitting there. Another thing is this. You tend to start taking shortcuts financially so you can survive and keep the things that you have as long as you can keep them until someone forces them out of your hands, okay? I see Paul Thomas' background back there, but Paul does all the bankruptcy stuff for the federal government. You see this one all the time. People who shortcut things to keep what they have that they can't afford anymore, but they want to keep it so bad they will shortcut things. There's a couple ways you see this happen. Payday loans. Let me just tell you, if you're getting payday loans, you're in trouble. You're on the verge of being in serious trouble. People who take out loans for other loans, it's telling you got a problem with your management of money, that you're mishandling your money, you're not living within your means when you're having to take one loan to pay for another loan, okay? You need to be very careful. Another consequence, depression. Typically, people with lots of debt usually are much more depressed and dealing with a lot more depression. Another one is this, they're usually fearful. They live with a fear for the future because they never know, is everything going to be taken away from me at some point? Is my whole life going to come crumbling down? Because they can see the debt, they can see what they're making, and they don't know how this is ever going to feed this, and they start to fear because they realize everything could crumble. Resentment is another thing. You get yourself in a financial mess. Over time, when you're dealing with that mess for multiple years, you stop remembering it's about you and you start resenting the people who are taking your money. And you start seeing them as unfairly taking your money. This is why politicians use debt forgiveness all the time to try to get your vote. Okay? They love taking Americans who are resentful about the debt they have and going, we will just take care of your debt so you don't even have to pay the consequences of it, and we'll take it, vote for me. And they use that as a ploy to get your vote. The other couple of things that are consequences, it increases your cost of items in the future. Some people don't know this. If you carry debt, it lowers your credit score, and you get worse interest rates than people with high credit scores. And so literally you start paying in the future higher prices for things than you would if you had good credit and if you were living within your means. So for example, when I go in, just so you know, I have very good credit, okay? That's because I've lived within my means my entire life. So when I go in and get a car loan, I might get a 3 to 3.5% car loan percentage. Someone that has debt and has bad credit will go in and they'll offer them like an 8.5% loan, okay, on their credit for that car. 8.5 to 3.5 is a whole lot of money on a monthly basis that you're paying into a car, and over the life of a 5-year loan, you pay a whole lot more money for that exact same car than I will pay, okay? So not managing your money well, not living within your means, actually starts costing you more the longer you go living that way. Items start costing more. The other thing it does, it reduces your buying power. So there are people that make more than I do that I have more buying power because I don't have debt. So what they are doing is you have people paying for things they no longer have, but they bought it impulsively earlier on in their life that they're still paying for, that I don't have to pay for. So they're sucking maybe $100 a month out of their paycheck, paying for something they don't own anymore that I get to use and spend and use in my life. So it gives you more buying power. These are all serious consequences of not using wisdom and godly wisdom with your money and not living within your means. Here's kind of thing that happens. The consequences that come from not living within your means actually reinforces the issues that lead us to not living in our means in the first place. So what actually happens is this. We try to fill those voids in our lives by making bad short-term decisions that actually create long-term bad decisions and outcomes that lead to emphasizing the original problems even more. So what we end up doing is, I call it this way, it almost becomes an unstoppable snowball situation. Now, most of you, I have a picture up here because most of you don't know what snow is. So those of us that have lived in the north know what snow is. So I'm going to explain this concept of a big snowball to you, because even if we do get snow, I've been here 13 years, and I think I've been here like 1 or 2 times where you could actually make a snowball that big. But up north, what you did in the winter times is you tried to build huge snowballs. So you would get them, and you start with a small one, and you start rolling it, and you roll it, and it gets bigger and bigger, and the further you roll it, it rolls, and then you kind of turn it some, and you roll it the other way so it gets nice and round, and it's not just like a big wheel, but it gets nice and round. Now, what happens when you're doing it, see how brown his is? Does anyone know what the brown is in there? What is it? It's dirt and grass. Most of it's grass. It's your dead grass that starts picking up. Now, up north of the Kentucky bluegrass, sometimes the grass is still green underneath the snow. So it's still green. And you're like, oh, look, it's summertime, but it's still 20 degrees out. But in this case, what you have is you have dirt and snow, and this kid's piling on, and it just starts picking up everything. And this is what happens with debt when you don't spend your money, when you don't handle your money right. It becomes like this uncontrollable snowball. Now, the fun thing to do up north is if you can get on top of a hill and build one of these, and then launch it down a hill at someone. You can literally kill them because you can see it go down the hill and it grows huge as it's going down the hill, and if someone doesn't see it, it will run them over. You can do serious damage to people, but if you didn't like them, it was a great opportunity. So you wait for them to be on the sledding hills, you wait for people, this is what we used to do, you build like 4 or 5 up top, and then when people go down on their sleds and they start making a long hike back up the hill, you start rolling those down. And they just grow, and there's these huge snowballs coming at people, and you can kill people. But here's the thing about it. I try to reference that because really that's what debt is like, is it becomes a saying that it becomes uncontrollable, unstoppable, that you can't stop because it starts to become overwhelming and it becomes bigger than you, and you get so much momentum behind it, so much debt, you can't stop it. What we do in our society typically is when it hits the wall, people declare bankruptcy, okay? And then you go through the courts and you go through everything else and you start losing all of your stuff and you're financially destroyed for years and years and years. That's what we see, and that's what the snowball does. It eventually hits you and everything falls apart, okay? That's why I like to call it kind of like the unstoppable snowball effect. What happens is this: when you get yourself in financial trouble, when you get yourself in debt, then it's almost like the system literally enslaves you. You become a slave to your debt. It enslaves you. And it gets us all the way back to the love of money that the scriptures talk about and how it will destroy you. 1 Timothy 6:10 again, it said this: "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And some people craving money have wandered from true faith and have pierced themselves with many sorrows." Proverbs 28:22, love this one. It says this: "Greedy people try to get rich quick." Let me just put that in terms of what I'm talking about today. Greedy people, people who buy stuff before they should be buying it, who are not living within their means. So it says greedy people who try to get rich quick, but don't realize they're what? Headed for poverty. At the beginning, it always seems great. It seems like you're getting all the dreams you ever wanted. And before long, you start to figure out, holy cow, I'm heading for poverty and I have no money to do anything and I'm going to lose everything and I'm going to be left with nothing. Okay? Proverbs had figured that out 3,500 years ago. I already knew how debt works. So this morning, I want to answer this question. How is it that we live within our means? And what I want to do is just give you 4 keys that I think if you understand these concepts, one, if you're not in debt and you're someone that lives within your means, this will help you continue to do that. If you're younger and you're sitting here and you haven't become a full adult yet, so you're not having to support yourself, remembering these 4 things will prevent you from going into debt and living outside of your means. Or if you're someone in here, which is probably 44% to 77% of you, you have debt currently, and you already know the stuff I'm talking about, you feel some of that stuff. Hopefully this stuff will at least give you a guiding post of how to kind of reset your life some, to start trying to work yourself out of debt. Because the first thing you need to do before you can thrive in life is get rid of the debt so you can move on in life and be freed from it. Okay, so let me give you 4 keys that I think are very helpful. The first one is this: understand not everyone has the same means, and that's okay. What I mean by that is this: not everybody can earn the same amount of money. Okay? And this is okay. There are some people sitting in this room that can earn more money than you. They have the education, they have the right situations, whatever it is, they have the ability to earn more than you ever will. That's okay. Okay? There are people in this room that have less ability than I do to earn money. That's okay. There are people in this room that have much more ability than I do to earn money. That's okay. Let me tell you some of those things. Some people are smarter than I am. They're going to earn money. Some people understand money better than I do. They're going to earn more money. Some people are better talking about money and handling money and figuring out how to deal with money and sell things to people, and they're going to earn more money than me. That's okay. That's just how we were born. There's nothing wrong with that. We live in a society right now where they try to teach you that's wrong, that's bad, that people have the ability to earn more means than you. No, it isn't. It's okay. It's just how the world works, and you have to learn to be okay with that, because once you learn to be okay with that, it's much easier to go through life and just go, I'm content with what I have. Matthew chapter 25, God lays this out. God talks about 3 servants he has, and he's going on this trip. And he says he gave them 3 different sets of amount of money. One of them he gave 5 bags of gold, one I think 2, and one 1. And he says he gave them according to basically what their skills, what their talents were, the ability he knew they had to work with that money. So he gave it to them accordingly, and he's basically making a point, not everybody is equals. That's okay. Okay, we don't have to be equals. There's nothing wrong with that. Hebrews 13:5 says this, don't love money, be satisfied with what you have, okay? If you think everybody has to earn the same and everyone should be earning the same, you will never be happy with what you have. Because in the real world, that will never work, and there will always be people that have more than you. And so it's not an issue they have more than you, it's an issue that you have never learned to be satisfied with what God has already given you. And it really comes down to an issue of you, not others. All right? So the first thing you have to do is understand not everyone has the same means, and that's okay. The second thing, I would say this, the kingdom of God has to play a role in how you deal with your finances. It just has to. The Bible is very clear on this, that God has to play a role in your finances. Some of the reasons for that, it keeps you centered. It keeps your priorities straight. It keeps your priorities straight, being focused on God's kingdom rather than just building your own kingdom. Okay? So when you keep God as a priority in your finances, it always reminds you, I'm here for God, not just for me. And that's a very valuable lesson. It reminds you where to have your faith and trust, where your faith and trust should be, which is it should be in God as my provider, not the things of this world. Okay? So it's having God as a priority in your finances reminds you of that. It also allows you to participate in truly meaningful things. When you keep God in the center of your finances and stuff like that, it allows you to be participants in things bigger than you that aren't just temporal things, but eternal things. Okay? So whether you give 5 cents to kingdom work or $5 million to kingdom work, you can sit there knowing I am giving the kingdom work that's doing eternal things and accomplishing eternal things in this world that will last beyond the grave, because none of the money I have can I take with me, all right? So the kingdom of God must play a role. Proverbs 3:9, it says this, honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce, okay? So it says take the best of what you produce, honor God with it. Those of you who are here for when I talk about how to use your money and giving and stuff like that, I'm not going deep into detail with that, just real brief explanation. All I tell you is this, have a relationship with God, talk to God about how much of your money that you bring in, the means that you bring in, how much money you bring in, talk to Him about how much you should give to kingdom work. And if God convinces you this is how much you should give, be faithful, give it, and you will be a joyful giver because you're being obedient to what God's called you to give. Don't care about dollar amounts, you care about what God convinces you to give, and then you give that, okay? So our role as leaders is to help you connect to God, not money out of you. Our role is to lead you to Christ. Christ will talk to you about how to use your money in a way that honors Him. I also say this, if you do not trust this church with your finances and go, I don't know this church well enough or anything to give them money because I don't know if they're doing kingdom work, that doesn't mean you don't give your money to kingdom work. Go find some place to give it that you trust is doing kingdom work and still give it in the name of Christ and say that I'm giving this money to this organization or this group of people as an act of my commitment to Christ and to honor God, okay? If you're a member of this church, if you don't trust the finances of this church, you probably shouldn't still be attending here because that means we're crooked and you shouldn't be giving your money anyways, okay? We try to be as upfront as we can with any of this stuff. Jim just looked at himself like, ooh. No, honestly, a church should be transparent with everything. That's why we put out the budget at the beginning of every year. We put out there so you know where every dollar is going to be spent in our budget. Anyone that wants to know how our money is spent in this church, you can talk to me. You can talk to any of the elders or leadership, and we'll go show you any of it, and you can see it all. Donna puts it all into the computer. We have access to it, and you can see exactly where every single penny is spent in this church. It is free, open, transparent for any of you to look at. There's no secrets there. The reason we do that is we want you to be able to trust the integrity of us using the money that it is going for kingdom work, and it's not just going to enrich people, okay? So, but the kingdom of God must be a priority in how you manage your money. The third key I would tell you is this. This is a simple one. Don't spend more than you make today, okay? Don't spend more than you make today. In general, don't buy things today that you can't afford to pay for today. This is one of the rules I live my life by. If I don't have the money in hand to go buy something, do I need to go buy it? No, I don't. I can wait till I get the money in hand. Then I can go buy it. I'm not going to go buy things on debt when I don't have the money just because I need it right now. The only debts that I would say that are somewhat understandable is a mortgage, because most of us aren't going to make enough money up front to pay off an entire mortgage, okay? But make sure you get one that fits within your budget and what you're making that doesn't suck all of your money away from you. And from time to time, cars. especially when you're younger and you don't have capital saved up front. You usually have to take a car loan out, something like that, to be able to go get a car. So in those situations, you do too. But again, if you can live with a $19,000 nice new car, don't go buy a $45,000 nice new car because it looks nicer and it's got more bells and whistles. Guess what? It's not going to affect the quality of your life. Buy the $19,000, not the $45,000. Okay, that gives you an extra probably $30,000 to $40,000 over a 5-year period of time to spend on other things and even kingdom work. All right, so be smart. And the few times that you do use debt, you do use loans in order to purchase things. Here's what it says in 1 Timothy 6:6-8. It says, "Yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth." So here's what's interesting. Paul tells you what great wealth is. It has nothing to do with money. He says this, thing that is great wealth is contentment and godliness. Living a godly life and being content with what God has given you. Don't compare yourself to others. Just content with what God has provided you. If you have a place to lay your head and you have clothes to put on your body and you have food to eat, be content. Okay, be happy with that. He says, after all, we brought nothing with us into this world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave it. So if we have enough food and clothing, let us be content. If you learn to be content, most likely you will not mismanage your money, you will not go into debt, and you will live within your means because you learn to just be content and go, God, I have enough food, I have enough clothing, I have a place to lay my head, I'm content. And then you're not going out and buying things you shouldn't be buying. The last one is this, last key. Let God transform you so you can be released from the emotional slavery that the world traps you in. Of all the three I've talked about, this is the first step, even though I'm giving it as the fourth one, the first place you have to start, okay? The world's way of handling money and viewing money, it literally will enslave you and entrap you in your life. God can fulfill you in areas of your life that Satan uses to enslave you. Jealousy, greed, lack of contentment, lack of patience, lack of self-worth. God can free you from all those issues if you're willing to take the time to actually build a relationship with Him and allow Him to free you from those things. But if you refuse to allow Him to fulfill you in those areas of your life, you will end up living a life where you are simply surviving both physically and financially. In 1 Timothy 6:9 it says this, "But people who long to be rich fall into temptations and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction." Okay, he's describing to you right here what happens when you mismanage your money, when you don't live within your means. He's telling you the results are not going to be pretty. It's not going to work out for you. You're literally going to live the rest of your life just trying to survive day to day, and that is no fun. But if you're willing to allow God to fulfill you and transform you, you will find a new path where you will learn to actually thrive in life. 1 Timothy chapter 6. Paul laid out for us the correct mindset to have with money. Here's what he says. "Teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. Tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for the future, so that they may experience true life." Okay? That's the life where you finally start to thrive and you experience your life. When you are at a place where you're living within your means and God gives you the ability to help people in need and help them out when you see the times to help them out. I'll give you a quick little story to wrap up today. It's interesting because it happened yesterday at Food Bank, and I told Paul because Paul took this lady out. A Hispanic lady came to Food Bank yesterday, and I see her about every 6 months. She shows up somewhere in my life, but I've told most of you this story from the stage before that. I was probably been like anywhere from 8 to 10 years ago maybe. A little lady, Hispanic lady, showed up with like a 6-year-old and like a 3-year-old, like 3 or 4 days before Christmas, or a week or two, somewhere right in that Christmas realm, close to Christmas, showed up here at the church during a week. And she knocked on the door. She couldn't speak a lick of English, and so her 6-year-old had to interpret everything for us. And she basically told me a story that her husband had just left her for another lady and went back to Mexico and left her here. She wasn't a citizen. She had no way. He hadn't paid the bill on the apartment, so they just got an eviction notice. So he left her that morning. The eviction notice was put on the front door. She was going to be put out in the cold with her 2 kids and had no idea what to do with her life. And she's like, I don't know what to do. I've got my kids. My husband's gone. I have nothing. And that day so happens to be, it was the day I had all my Christmas money on me because I was going to buy Christmas presents for my kids. So that day I actually had, I think, somewhere between $300 and $400 on me in cash, which I never carry. If you know me, I never carry cash. I had $300 or $400 on me in cash that day for Christmas presents. And my thing was, I was sitting there and I just felt like God was telling me, dude, you can't just send her back out in the cold. So I have to make these decisions all the time. Like, do I just tell them no? So I was like, I got to help this lady. So I was like, you know what? I got my Christmas money here for my family. I said, I'm going to give it to you so you can go pay for your apartment or whatever. It'll buy you a month to try to figure things out. I said, here's all my money I have. It will pay off your apartment for the next month. Go take this and do this. And I made a point to let her know, this is my Christmas money for my family. So here it is, take it. For the last however many years, 8, 10 years, whatever it is, I've been invited to both of her daughters' quinceañeras. Is that how you say it? Am I getting it right? Thank you. Okay. All right. Been invited. I get an invitation for both of those, for both of her daughters when they turned 15. She just got remarried, like I think 5 months ago or something. And she sent me an invitation for her wedding because she got remarried. It sounds like to a good guy and all that. And every 6 months she somehow shows up at the church. And yesterday she showed up and she's at food bank and she's getting food for a friend because a friend didn't have a way to get here, so she drove her car over so she could get food to give it to one of her neighbors that needed food. And she sat and talked with me and was telling me about her kids, and now she's got 3 grandkids and all that type of stuff because the 2 girls are both married now and all that stuff. And the girls have me on Facebook and stuff like that, so I still see what's happening in their lives. Let me tell you, that's the best $300 to $400 I've ever spent in my life. Okay? Brings more joy to me than anything else. It's one of those things where I can say I'm thriving in life, not just surviving, simply because I gave that money. Now let me just tell you, did my family go without Christmas gifts that year? No. Why? Because we have an excess of money. I could go get others. Did we do with less? Yeah, we probably did with less that year. But I gave away that money at the time. I could have used it on myself. I could have spent it on me, bought things I wanted for my family. I did that, and now it's turned into something that year after year. And if I'd bought presents, I couldn't tell you what they would have been because they're just things that go away. But lives were changed because I had the ability, because I live within my means, to use my money to bless others. When you get to that place in your life, you start to thrive rather than just surviving. And that's the life God desires for you. That's why God so much desires for you to live within your means, because if you live within your means, God will bless you. He will give you more, not for you to spend on you, but to bless others. And when you bless others, you see God using you to do eternal work in people's lives, and that changes your everyday view of everything. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father,